Welcome to another Cinema 4D tutorial. This one's going to be a little bit longer, but I'm going to be showing you some techniques on how to create your own character for rigging and then animating. So we'll kind of go through the whole process here from the beginning till the end, and kind of wanted to slow this down for you to show you some of the tips and tricks to do this the right way. You may not see a pretty result. I'm not going for a beautiful model here, but what I will do is I'll post a link to a speed modeling tutorial that kind of shows you more in depth some of the ways to get a better look. So let's dive right into it. I've just created a cube and I'm in the hidden line display. I just like this because there's no shadows, and this will allow me to see polygons before I have made things editable. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our segments are set to 4 for the X, 3 for the Y, and 3 for the Z. And you can see what I'm talking about. I can see now my polygons, whereas if I was in the regular shading, I wouldn't. But we're going to just go ahead now and make this editable. And now I'm going to jump into the front view, click my live selection tool, and make sure that only select visible elements is turned off. And we're just going to select, half of this object, and we're going to blow it away. And now we're going to utilize the symmetry, and we're going to make the cube a child, and we're going to basically be right back to where we started. But this allows us now to click any polygon and do any extrusion, and it will be mimicked on either side. So this is critical for the head, body, and arms. So from here, what we'll do is we'll first make kind of our head and neck. Now you'll notice I have my move tool selected, and for your move or your scale tool, either one, under modeling axis, you're going to normally see these defaults all set to 0. And that's not what we want. When we're trying to scale something, you'll notice I'm going to get this overlap that I don't want at all. So we're going to want to make sure that we set this right to the seam, right to the center of our torso by going to negative 100% on the X. And now I can reshape this a little bit. And now I can extrude cleanly. We're going to call this my neck. And I'm going to kind of angle it out. And I'm going to go ahead and extrude my head. Okay, so nothing fancy there. Now at this point what I want to do is I want to put this in a subdivision surface to see this more smooth object take shape. What you'll notice is I've got these little airs here. I've got this line that's angled in a way that I don't want, that we do definitely don't want that to be created. And the reason for that is if I uncheck symmetry, you'll notice that I have created these center polygons that I don't want. So I'm going to get rid of those. And now when I turn my symmetry back on, we've got a clean beginning here. So we're going to leave the head for now. Let's jump down to the lower body, to the legs. And now the same thing here, we're going to have to change our axis to now be on the outside. And now we're going to scale it, something like that. And we're going to now extrude it, just down like that. I'm going to do it a couple of times. And you'll notice when I do it again, it kind of turns the legs more into stalks. And then we'll do it a third time. And then I'll select the front polygon here and extrude it out and just make some basic feet, just like that. Now we'll go here to where I want my arm to be. I'm going to zero out this axis, but what I need now is to change my y-axis. I'm going to keep my arms, my shoulders all kind of in line. And now we're going to go ahead and drag this out. I'm going to do it 1, 2. I'm going to kind of scale this down a little bit. And I'll go 3, one more here. So it's going to be kind of my main arm. This is all going to be adjusted later. As you'll notice, I probably made this a little too long here. So we'll kind of go like this is to the elbow. This is beyond the elbow. And then here's my hand. So we have a basic structure here, nothing pretty about it, but a basic robotic structure. So let's play around a little bit now with let's start with the legs. Obviously we've got some issues here. So I'm going to start manipulating this guy a little bit. I am going to want my live selection tool to have visible elements checked on. And I'm going to just kind of create a little bit more of a normal looking body. It does give my character a little bit of a gut, but makes it a little bit more normal looking. Let's see. I'm also going to use the points mode a lot to select and smooth out some of these points so that it's not such a box, but it's a little bit more of a body here. So we're a little bit smoother that way. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. We'll just kind of tuck in his hiney here. And let's bring this down a little bit. Something like that. And we kind of need to do the same thing at the top here to have some normal shoulders. We'll lift this up a little bit. And a lot of times we want to uncheck subdivision surface because points will get lost. And we want to kind of bring up the shoulders a little bit. And now we're starting to look a little bit more normal. We'll also want to bring in some of these points and just overall just basic shaping to just kind of create a more realistic looking torso for my character. And I've got now my arms set in a certain way that makes it just look like there's just these tubes coming off my character. I'm just going to kind of flatten out the arms a little bit. Something a little bit more like that. And then obviously our hands need to get even flatter. So that's starting to look normal. I'm going to uncheck these visible elements and select everything and just kind of bring up the arm. Oops. That's going to basically be my hands. I'm going to bring these up a little bit, keep that even. And now let's start with some fingers here. So we'll go into the line mode and we'll take this top and bottom line. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to go edge cut. So I want 4 fingers coming out of this. So in order to do that, I want to make sure by default, your subdivision is going to be set to 1. We're going to want to set this to 3. And what you'll notice is I have created very quickly 1, 2, 3, 4 polygons here. So we'll go back to our polygon mode. We'll select all these. And now we're going to go extrude. And we're not going to preserve our groups. So we're going to, we are going to preserve our groups. No, we're not going to preserve our groups. There we go. And this will allow us to kind of drag out some individual fingers here. Oops. So now our character has a hand. And then we're going to want to add our thumb, which I'm going to want to come out somewhere right about here. So I'm going to use my knife tool. I'm going to hit K and then K again. And I'm going to hold down Shift and just kind of cut straight across here and hit Escape when I'm done. And then I'm going to select the polygon, the smaller polygon here, and I'm just going to extrude that as well. And that's kind of created a nice little thumb, and we'll slide that forward a little bit. And just looking at different perspectives to make sure I have a normal enough looking thumb. Okay, so that's a pretty basic look to a character. And there's a lot more work we need to do, but for now we're going to just move on to the head. So coming back into my head here, I need to get some structure in place here, some actual neck and head. Right now, this character just has a real thick neck. If that's what you want, you could leave it here and just start working on the facial features. But I don't want that. I want to make it look more realistic. So again, I'm gonna select my neck, and I'm just gonna go ahead and, oops, I need to change my axis here. And we'll go ahead and make this back here to minus 100. And we're going to shrink that neck down, something like that. All right. So it makes kind of like a ribbon shape, or like a heart-shaped head almost. But I have the neck looking the way I want. What I can do now is do a loop cut there. And then I'm going to just select these new lines. And just kind of drag this out a little bit, scale this out a little bit as well. Create a little bit more of a head shape. From here we can tweak, the size of the head. Can go in a little bit. And now we're starting to get more of a look that we want. And you're going to have to play around with the axis a lot, you'll notice. In this case, it's my y-axis. I'm going to kind of angle that in a little bit. But we want to be careful before we do that, because we want to make sure that this plane for the front of the head is nice and flat to create the eyeballs and the facial features before we start really changing the shape of the head. So you'll notice I already angled this face a little bit. It's okay, but I should have probably started doing my eyes before I changed my neck. But I'm okay with where it's at. So what I'll do is I will select my front here, and I'm going to start working on facial features on my face. So I'm going to go in here again and use the knife tool. And the first thing I want to do is create a set of eyes right about here. So let's just go ahead and just kind of create an eye socket here. And actually, I don't like that, because now I'm creating some ugly polygons. I'm going to do instead is I'm going to just cut all the way across the face in a couple pathways here. So we'll go there. Oops. We'll go here all the way through the head. And we'll do this a couple of times. And again, I'm doing this pretty haphazardly. You want to take more time and really pay attention to some of the things that you're doing to the head, but I also want a couple of cuts across the face here. So we'll go something like there, there, and there. And we'll go oops, I didn't cut the top of the head there. Okay. And then we'll cut across. Something like that. And then I'm going to use this space right here to just cut out my eye socket. There, there, and there. So notice just by cutting, I've already created what looks like kind of an ET face, but I have a good place already to create my eyes. So staying in polygon mode, I'm going to select that polygon where I want my eyeball to be. And let's just default this back to 0%. We're going to go extrude inner. And so I want my subdivision just to be 1. I want it to be small. And what I'll do is just kind of drag something like that. And now I've created a good eye socket. And we'll go back to our move tool. And now I can just kind of extrude the inner and pull that back, and I've got a nice eye socket ready to pop eyes in. Make it a little bit deeper, and maybe even make it a little bit bigger. All right, so there's my eye socket, and just really basically I'm just going to, for right now, grab a sphere, bring this up, scale it down, and actually before I start moving it, I am going to separately create a symmetry, and this way I can start manipulating my eyes individually. And I'm just going to pop these eyes into my eye socket. Right like that. And if you notice one of my eyeballs is off, that means I screwed something up with the starting position of my sphere. So my sphere should be right in the center of this character's face. Let's just create a new one because I can tell it's slightly off. Bring it forward and we'll go into symmetry. And we'll start back to where we were. Or maybe I'll have to move the whole of the symmetry over a little bit, something like that. And let's pop these eyeballs in the old eye socket. And there we go. We've got some eyeballs stuck in the face there. Again, nothing crazy looking yet. But let's go back to our cube. And now let's start making some more facial features here. So I want to have a nose come out, and I want to eventually create my mouth. So let's grab our knife tool. Let's just go ahead and create that by making one more cut straight down the middle. So I'll go somewhere here to there. Where is my knife? There we go. And then now I'll cut my nose by doing that and by doing that. Let's grab our nose now, and now we can extrude it out. And now I actually will have a crown on my nose, but I need to make sure that I have deleted this center polygon. There we go. And you'll notice we still have an issue here being created by me making these haphazard cuts, but I'm going to pull that point way up. And that starts to give me a much more realistic looking nose that we now need to kind of adjust and play with. But now we at least have something that we can, start manipulating a little bit. Let me change my axis again. Scale this out a little bit. Just give him kind of a wide nose there. And now I'm going to go in here. I'm going to mess with the mouth. So just kind of using these existing cuts, I'm going to go back into my knife tool, and I'm just going to cut out a mouth opening. Something like that. And same thing, select these new polygons and we'll extrude them inward. And we'll make sure that we've got that middle polygon deleted. And now we've got a little bit of a mouth here to play with. Okay, so let's take a look here, closer look. We've got these rivets being created. And so what I'm just going to do now is grab my live selection tool, select all that's visible here in the front of my character, and oops, I'm just going to select all this that's more in the center of the face. I'm going to pull this out a little bit, and we can always go back and adjust the eyeballs a little bit. And then I'm going to go into my points mode, and I'm going to make sure that those go away somehow. And probably the easiest way to do it here is to just cut right across the forehead here. Something like that. And you'll notice it smooths out that edge of the face. I don't mind the little seam here because it kind of starts to make a place for cheeks that we can mess with. But it does, every time you do that, it does make the head boxier. So what we'll do here is we'll start curving this head a little bit more. And then we'll mess with our points a little bit too, and just kind of select only the visible points and create a little bit more curvature at the temple. And we've got a lot more work to do in the back as well. We're going to take these points and pull them back. And we need to also do the same at the bottom. Pull those back a little bit like that. I notice I've got kind of a rigid line here across the head, so let's pull this up and pull this back a little bit. Smooth out that forehead a little bit. So you can see this starting to take shape. Let's get our eyeballs. Let's see. Get my axis way down there. Let's bring these back into the eye sockets. And now we have a much more realistic looking little face here. Kind of a weird looking creature that we've created. I am going to extrude the chin a little bit because right now this guy has nothing in the way of a chin. And I probably need to make a few more cuts. Ooh. I'll do the same thing here to kind of tighten up that mouth. And then also we'll kind of cut to the outside of the mouth, and we'll do the inside of the mouth as well. And that just kind of forms that mouth into a much more precise shape. And now I will just sort of pull this out a little bit. Oof. Man, I'm clunky today. All right. Continuing with our cuts, let's give ourselves a little bit more of a chin here. Let's just kind of cut around our character all the way around. And let's take now this polygon. Let's actually take these points and we can bring these forward and make more of a pronounced chin, and we'll make it a little less boxy. And now we've got a much more realistic looking face. So, there's a lot more we could do from the standpoint of making this character look realistic, but this gives you a pretty good idea of, how to get in here and play with a lot of the different features. Good to kind of preview this from time to time. You'll notice that I've got some interesting looking seams created a lot of times just by not having enough cuts. So I'm going to go back to my regular shading here, and this will allow me to kind of identify those points that I'm making a mess of and just kind of cut to clean it up. And I just sort of need more, it needs more data. You just need to cut more usually to smooth these items out. We'll cut around it here. Let's see. Nose is looking okay. There is a little gap there. So sometimes what you want to do is check the position of points, and you'll see down here on the X that there's a slight separation there. You're going to want to zero that out and do it usually in multiple locations, but that'll give us that smooth look. I also need to just kind of connect some of the cuts I've made, like this eye socket and this facial feature here, and that'll help me start getting a more well-rounded character. Connecting some of these will help as well. Let's see, let's take the corner of the mouth and just kind of cut that across the face. So it starts to look a lot better when you get in the habit of doing that. I have this angle that I've created here, so I'll need to just kind of cut across the forehead. And that'll help smooth it out as well. So let's go back to our regular hidden line creation. And let's make these hands look a little bit more realistic by just kind of flattening them out a little bit. The thumb can stay a little flat, but hands should be kind of flatter than the rest of the arm. The arm itself could be a little fatter. Let's just make sure that let's change our axis point to the center. There we go. And then let's kind of take these polygons where our forearm's going to be, kind of shrink that down a little bit. I'm starting to make it look a lot more natural looking. Still not great, still a lot of work to do. You're probably looking at this and saying like, okay, why are you showing me something that's quite ugly in shape? And I understand where you're coming from, but let's just keep playing with it here until we get the result that we want. Let's see. I'll take and I'll probably speed up some of this tutorial so that you don't have to bear with me with so much nonsense. I'm going to try to kind of lengthen out the leg here. There we go. make the character's thighs a little bit bigger, and then we'll come in and there's a polygon in there that I want to select. Yeah, I'll go back to this mode. And to the lines. Bring that in a little bit. And then we'll go down to these lines and we'll shrink this a little bit. And then I'm going to actually go back to my middle axis point here. Just kind of shrink that in, give it a little bit more calf definition, ankle definition. Starting to look a little bit more like normal legs. And you know, we might want to do some bigger adjustments as well. Like for instance, you know, the legs are he's pretty bow-legged here. So let's just go ahead and select everything here in the lower trunk. We can kind of slide that in a little bit. Now he's a little knock-kneed. So we'll grab the whole leg apparatus and just kind of tuck that in a little bit. And then now my arms are disparately long. So let's just grab this. Just kind of pull his arms in a little bit. And the hand is pretty darn big. So I'm just going to select the whole hand. And just kind of scale this down a little bit. And make sure it's still kind of flat. So now we're starting to look a little bit more proportional. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of the basics for creating a low poly character. This is nowhere near where I would say, you know, we're in good shape. You know, we're going to need a lot more features and a lot more cuts that you can kind of play with on your own. But I'll just keep going here and show you a little bit more. Oops. Make sure you're always toggling some of these settings. So here I've got, you know, select only checked off, and that's going to really mess your model up if you're not careful. So there we go. I've got a little bit more cheek structure. Make sure that we don't have too much of a weird looking mouth cavity there. And this head is still really not anywhere near where I would say a normal head should look. I don't know. Everyone looks different. You never know. But I think we want to be a little bit more narrow here. Let's just cut. Let's create another cut here. All the way across the head. Whoopsie daisy. And this is where, once you have enough cuts, you're really going to start using points mode quite a bit more to create the intended look. More cuts needed, I think. Turn off subdivision there to get a better look at what I'm doing. And this is where you start seeing points kind of disappear, which is never a good thing. So make sure we're rounding this object in a better fashion. So yeah, I mean, this is just, total tweak time. Let's, we're gonna keep tweaking, keep working on this character until it really gets to a structure that mimics a real looking head. I would say, personally, on a scale of 1 to 10, this tutorial result is about a 5. But maybe you'll think it better. So anyway, that's kind of the tricks for coming in here and cutting without me going into full artistic mode, which would be a long-winded tutorial and would start to show you some really ugly, control, edit, undo stuff, cuts that I'll screw up. You're going to make mistakes. You just got to kind of accept the fact that there's going to be things that just don't look natural, that you've got to really tweak and tweak and tweak until you get to a proportional looking character. It also helps to kind of look at an example. So maybe you want to use a Pixar looking character and you want to mimic that type of design. That's always really helpful because I'm just kind of doing this free form. Doesn't give me the ability to make my character look like something that I've seen that I want to resemble. So it creates a lot of these ugly looking errors in the head, and so I definitely come up with some sort of a sketch or some sort of idea of what your character look like first before you just jump in and start doing this. But anyway, I hope that was helpful. I hope this gives you an idea of what to do, what not to do, and allows you to start getting in here and playing with your character and, take some cracks at it. If you don't like where you're at, just start over, follow the process again. And in the next tutorial, we'll show you how to rig this character, and then we'll show you how to start animating the face, creating hair, doing a whole host of things. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next tutorial.